Bonjour. Long live the Indo-French relationship.
Modi, macro, bilateral and bonhomie. H-125 helicopter line inaugurated. India-France AI axis emerges.
इंडो-फ्रेंच सेंटर फॉर एआई इन हेल्थ और ये मात्र इंस्टीट्यूशंस नहीं है, ये फ्यूचर बिल्डिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स है।
Defense cooperation expands.
चाहे राफाल हो, चाहे सबमरीन्स हो, ऐसे कई जो क्षेत्र है जहां पर हम मिलकर भारत के साथ काम कर रहे हैं।
Rafale to submarines partnership. Multipolar world message.
ये पार्टनरशिप केवल स्ट्रेटेजिक नहीं है। आज के उथल-पुथल से भरे युग में यह ग्लोबल स्टेबिलिटी और ग्लोबल प्रोग्रेस की पार्टनरशिप है।
हेजेमनी ना हो किसी, और हम पूरी तरह से कानून में, रूल ऑफ लॉ में विश्वास करते हैं।
Hugs and handshakes to counter hegemony.
Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from Maximum City, Mumbai. We are at the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminus in Mumbai. I'm Gaurav Sawant, and over the course of the next half hour, we will talk about the India-France partnership. Prime Minister Narendra Modi described the India-France partnership as a force for global stability in a world that's full of turmoil and churn. There was conversation around the H-125 helicopters. Now, why is this a game changer? Remember, India is the only country in the world that has a battlefield at ultra-high altitudes. Siachen, for example, you have your soldiers deployed at 22,000 feet altitude, and there's no helicopter in the world that can fly loads at that altitude. Of course, the Alouettes or the Cheetahs and the Chetaks, they've done so, but that's the skill of the Indian Air Force or Indian Army pilots. This H-125 will be an absolute game changer. The French president spoke of technology transfer when it comes to the Rafale fighter jets, of submarines, and also warships and other defense items. Now, what does this how does this translate into action on ground? An India-France strategic partnership, is this then the go-to force when it comes to aviation, aeronautics and partnership? India hedging when it comes to either Russia or the United States of America. We'll talk about this in greater detail, but first, our Mumbai and Delhi bureau bring you our top story.
My dear friend, President Macron, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार, bonjour.
Bonhomie strategy and a clear message to the world. The Modi-Macron meet in Mumbai signaled a partnership that goes beyond diplomacy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron came together to reaffirm ties from artificial intelligence to advanced materials, from defense to digital science. They made it clear the ties are designed for the long haul and for global impact.
Indo-French Center for AI in Health, Indo-French Center for Digital Science and Technology और नेशनल सेंटर ऑफ अलायंस फॉर स्किलिंग इन एरोनॉटिक्स लॉन्च करने जा रहे हैं और ये मात्र इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं है, ये फ्यूचर बिल्डिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स है.
By jointly pressing the button.
A key symbol of that trust, the virtual inauguration of the Airbus H-125 helicopter assembly line at Vemagal in Karnataka.
भारत और फ्रांस मिलकर माउंट एवरेस्ट की ऊंचाइयों तक उड़ान भरने वाला विश्व का एकमात्र हेलीकॉप्टर भारत में बनाएंगे और ये पूरे विश्व को एक्सपोर्ट भी करेंगे। इंडिया फ्रांस पार्टनरशिप knows no boundaries.
Beyond manufacturing, the message was strategic. Both leaders spoke in one voice on democratic values, the rule of law, and multipolar world.
ये पार्टनरशिप केवल स्ट्रेटेजिक नहीं है। आज के उथल-पुथल से भरे युग में यह ग्लोबल स्टेबिलिटी और ग्लोबल प्रोग्रेस की पार्टनरशिप है।
हमने एक नए रास्ते, कई नए रास्ते चुने हैं, जैसे कि तीसरा रास्ता जो हिंद प्रशांत क्षेत्र का हो या फिर तकनीक का हो या फिर, और जिसमें हम ऐसा रास्ता है जिसमें कोई भी हेजेमनी ना हो किसी, और हम पूरी तरह से कानून में, रूल ऑफ लॉ में विश्वास करते हैं।
From Rafale fighter jets to submarines, defense cooperation is expanding. Macron called India one of France's most trusted partners.
चाहे राफाल हो, चाहे सबमरीन्स हो, चाहे वो ये जो हेलीकॉप्टर्स के लिए जो फाइनल असेंबली लाइन जो टाटा एडवांस्ड कंपनी जो है वो मिलकर फ्रांस के साथ कर रही है। हम मिलकर भारत के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पर हम टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर में विश्वास करते हैं।
In the world facing uncertainty, conflict and power rivalry, the India-France partnership is projecting stability, balance and trust. Bureau Report, India Today.
A lot of what you see today was in the works when Ambassador Jawed Ashraf was India's ambassador to France. He joins me for a one-on-one on this India Today special broadcast. Ambassador Ashraf, welcome. When the president of France says that France believes in technology transfer when it comes to the Rafales and the submarines and the fifth generation fighter jet engines, what do you make of the India-France relationship as it stands today, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that there are no boundaries in this relationship? Is it finally coming of age and being acknowledged as such?
Well, Gaurav, thank you very much. And I know you're speaking from Mumbai. In a sense, this visit elevates the relationship to a new level, a culmination of a process that has been going on for some time. But let me start by saying that France has been a trusted, consistent, and a strong strategic partner for India for decades now. Remember that in 1998, after the nuclear test, that was the only Western country that maintained ties with India, in fact, started a strategic dialogue immediately, was one of the foremost drivers of India's reintegration into the nuclear order, been a consistent supporter in the UN Security Council, and has been a long-standing partner in defense, space, and civil nuclear energy at a time when most Western countries shied away from being our partner. It is driven by a sense of strategic autonomy, which we share. And as you've seen that over the decades, we've had a number of platforms, but it is now aligning itself with India's priorities for Make in India, for design and development in India, for testing, qualification, and certification in India, because they understand that the underlying principle of strategic autonomy is sovereignty in defense and advanced technologies, particularly in the evolving geopolitical order, which is really something which we have seen is a new era that we are entering into, an uncertain one. And so I think in all these areas, what France is saying, and it has been saying this for some time, that it is prepared to work with us, not just simply in terms of manufacturing TOT of non-critical items, but a complete transfer of technology, and including in the design and development aspect, develops Indian supply chains, because it is important not just to focus on complete platforms, but on the developing a complete supply chain. And that is where you really get that sovereignty. We've seen that they have made that offer a number of times. In the case of aircraft engine, which is in fact a very advanced technology, they have been repeatedly stating in writing that they are prepared to work with us for the design development of a future fifth generation aircraft, including on teaching us the hot sections, which is the most critical part, on advanced materials, which is and castings
What
and
an
forgings,
interesting
and all
point.
these areas, which are critically important for developing our capabilities.
Because
It's a reflection of great trust, but I would also say that it is a reflection of the times we are in, where this partnership is first being validated by the geopolitical developments, as both Europe and India are facing a moment of reckoning by major powers. We are entering a fragmented world of great power competition. Existing alliances are weakening or are shaken. New equations are being formed. All the underpinnings of the scaffolds of the geopolitical system are breaking apart. So this is era of multipolarity, backed by a sense of strategic autonomy and sovereignty. These are the principles on which this relationship stands, and I think it is now being backed by reinforced literally by EU-India partnership, which has now reached a completely new level just last January.
yes. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also described 2026 as the year of transformation of India-Europe relationship, India-France relationship. But, the fighter jet engine for decades has been India's Achilles heel, and especially certain components. Now, in your view, sir, since you worked on this very closely, so yes, India and France have had great, military-to-military cooperation from the 1950s, the era of Tufanis, 1960s, the era of the Mystiers, and then the Jaguars, the Elysees, the Mirages in the 1980s. But now, are we seriously talking about a second line coming up where fighter jet engines, fighter jets, the fuselage and avionics can be made in India? And what kind of time frame do you see for this, sir?
Well, I think we have been very clear that all our defense partnerships will no longer be about buyer-seller relationship. India wants sovereignty, IP ownership, and indigenous capabilities in defense industry. I mean, that's a given. We are doing what we can on our own, but when we are looking at foreign partnerships, we are testing a proposal not so much in terms of what price we are just getting it at, but what are the capabilities, but how much does it mean for developing long-term indigenous capabilities, and not just to manufacture or assemble as we have been doing, but to be able to continually upgrade it on the basis of our own strength. A model for that is the India-France cooperation for developing the space rocket engine, which Safran and ISRO did, which has given us the capacity to continue to evolve, develop it, and become completely sovereign and independent in this. That's what we expect out of this partnership. This is therefore when we start the process of negotiations. These are very early days, Gaurav. Acceptance of necessity is only a starting point. There is a whole lot of work to be done. And here, we would also like to get, not just in terms of manufacturing or assembling or developing the complete supply chain, but also integration of our own weapon systems, our own software, sensor fusion, our capacity to integrate the Rafale aircraft whenever that actually materializes into our complete and data and network-centric system. So we have a complete efficiency and effectiveness in our air power. There'll be a lot on the table at this point of time that will be negotiated and developed as we go along. So it isn't going to happen tomorrow. So the second thing that you must remember is that skilling of people, and that is where this thing about aeronautic skill development is such an important initiative. We need to develop the skills in India. It is a highly advanced skill that requires a lot of precision, zero tolerance for error, and the entire process is not going to happen overnight. When we talk 70% indigenization, for example, it will be a progressive effort as we develop capacities and supply chains. And this is going to be like a force multiplier if our vision actually translates into ground decisions and implementation. And the same applies to aircraft engine. Let me tell you, there are not too many companies in the world that are capable of actually having complete sovereignty in the design, development, and manufacturing of fighter jet engines of high thrust of 98, 100, 110, 120. And you require not just knowledge of engineering and design, but metallurgical knowledge also. And that is something which is of great value. And there are French companies. I was also involved in discussions with them. And I think we'll have to, because it's such an important deal that will, or an initiative that will mean something for us for decades ahead, it is important that, and I'm sure the government will negotiate it in a way that will give us what we want, not just in terms of immediate air power, but a future of aviation capacities that will be at par with the rest of the world, or it'll be leading.
But considering not many countries are willing to share the technology with India.
Sorry?
Go on, sir.
No. You just carry on with the question. I'll come back to it.
Go on. You wanted to add another point?
No, I just said, even this H125 is the
not
beginning.
Not many countries are willing to share that technology. Yes.
No,
Yes, that's the question I was coming to, because not many people realize those altitudes in India. I mean, the Siachen battlefield, for example. Yes, we've flown the Alouettes, again French helicopters, the Chetaks and the Cheetahs at 22,000 feet altitude, or in a rescue operation, even 23,000 feet altitude. But that's breaking all ceilings and risking the lives and limb of the pilots concerned. This is a helicopter, in your view, sir, would it be an absolute game changer? And if it's manufactured in India, we get the numbers that we need and then export to the world?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have been talking to France about, especially in the context of even aircraft engine, is that the IP has to be ours, right? When we design and develop our project, we should not need licenses to integrate it into our exports. That is a given, and that is something that we will get. Now you come to this H125, right? This is the first time that there is a final assembly line of a helicopter in India, other than that, which we do with HAL. Now you know that all HAL helicopters fly with Shakti engine, which is a French engine. All of them do. And that we are working on getting a complete transfer of technology. We already have 73% transfer of technology on Shakti engines, and we'll get that up to 100%. That's a given. Now with H125 is the beginning of a process. Remember, this is to start with a final assembly line. We shouldn't be too satisfied with it. That once there is scale, and it is important that when we talk of indigenization, we must also back it up with scale. Otherwise, it will not be commercially viable. But I'm confident, and I worked on this, that H125 will have that scale. So we will eventually, from final assembly line, we must get into the design and development and the complete supply chain. In addition to that, this will be set the stage for twin engine helicopter, larger capacity. So we have an ecosystem. But hang on. Safran has already set up the MRO for the Shakti engines in Goa, but it's important that we also ensure that HAL's multi-role helicopter, which will be a 12-ton to 15-ton, a heavier helicopter, continues to make progress, and that we will work either with Airbus and to complete some aspects of design which we may not be capable of. But important that HAL and Safran have signed a joint venture to develop the engine for the IMRH, Indian Multi-Role Helicopter. So here you are looking at a ecosystem for helicopters, both for civilian needs, disaster management, remote area access, but eventually also for that almost massive demand for medium, small, and heavy lift helicopters in multi-role or in multiple ways for our armed forces. So I think we are also going into the direction of setting the stage.
Let me now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Brilliant. Let me now throw it open for a wider discussion. Ambassador Ashraf, joining me now on this broadcast, Ambassador Yash Sinha, former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, again somebody who watches India-Europe relationship very closely, and Air Marshal Anil Khosla, former Vice Chief of Air Staff, because remember, aviation, avionics, and that entire the aviation technology is an area where India and France are moving forward very, very closely. Ambassador Sinha, you wanted to come in on the India-France special strategic partnership, your reading of 2026 being year of innovation, cooperation in artificial intelligence for healthcare, and the conversations between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the French President Emmanuel Macron, sir.
Gaurav, thank you. I think my colleague Javed has already elaborated in great detail about the significance of this visit, and particularly in defense cooperation. But I find this visit very significant because sometimes, we concentrate far too much on the Anglosphere, and, the relationship with a country like France, which is vibrant, strong, and of long standing, goes under the radar. It's among the earliest strategic partnerships. I think it was 1998, was signed with France. And France, as Ambassador Ashraf mentioned, has stood by us during difficult times. I recall after our nuclear test in 98, when the West was basically imposing sanctions, France stood by us in many, and even during conflicts with Pakistan, etc. So I think it's a very significant visit, very significant at this particular point of time when the world is in a flux, if to put it mildly, and we are confronted with very stark choices. And France is always a safe harbor, always a country that we can rely on, not only in terms of defense cooperation, but for political support and backing also. So I think this visit by President Macron, though for the AI summit, the bilateral segment in Mumbai that concluded today was extremely important in my point of view. And the cooperation in upskilling and in AI and in other areas are all sort of part of this very vibrant relationship between these two countries.
Very significant point, sir. Let me also bring in Air Marshal Khosla, former Vice Chief of Air Staff. And with the falling number of fighter jet squadrons, we are now down to maybe 30, 31 squadrons, some argue 29. The Rafale deal still in the works. Your reading, by when will we have the initial aircraft, and then by when do you see that Make in India take effect with the F-3s and then the upgraded version of F-4s, sir?
Yeah, Gaurav, although this is the first step which has been taken, it will take a long time because a lot of effort needs to be put into finally when the deal is signed and the results start showing. Technical evaluation. Firstly, the RFP has to be issued, and based on the response, then the thing needs to be finalized. The technical evaluation has to be done. Thereafter, the price negotiation, which takes quite a long time, and finally the CCS approval. And after that, the whole gambit starts. Maybe the first 18 aircraft which are supposed to be bought in a flyaway condition will come faster, and while they are being made in France and being delivered in parallel, I think the work will go on for technology transfer and setting up the production and assembly lines in India depending on the contract. So it will take some time, being optimistic. Maybe one year is very, very optimistic figure. Maybe 2 to 3 years, the production, the addition of the aircraft into the Indian Air Force may start at a gradual pace, and then the pace may pick up later.
Be that, given that situation, what would that mean for India's falling fighter jet squadrons? We are down to 30, 31, some argue maybe 29 operational. And if it takes another 3 to 4 to 5 years, by the time the aircraft start coming in, would this indicate that we would need a stopgap arrangement? And what would that stopgap arrangement then mean for India's AMCA project, for our fifth generation? Or is there no alternative to this now, Air Marshal Khosla?
Yeah, so Gaurav, you rightly said, the figures varying 29 to 30. I think, in my opinion, personal opinion, we have hit the lowest figure now. And from here, it is a upward addition. Uh, the deal will definitely put brakes onto the drawdown. And I don't think we'll go down further. Now, as far as upscaling is concerned, that means the upward trajectory is concerned, it will not depend only on these 114 aircraft. It will be also dependent on how our indigenous production meets up our requirement, the pace at which we need induction of the indigenous aircraft, which I'm referring to. We already have 93 plus and 87 Mark 1 A's on order. Then the Mark 2 comes in, then the MCA comes in. It's very essential that these aircraft are produced in time so that this drawdown is stopped, and further it starts increasing in numbers to the requirement as far the Indian Air Force is concerned.
Okay, and given the situation, Ambassador Sinha, you've dealt with our partners in the United Kingdom. You've seen how we've had a situation with the United States on the G404 engines right from the time when we did the Pokhran nuclear tests, and that's the time our Sea King and Sea Harrier fleet, was grounded post Pokhran. And we still went in for the G404 engines, while they may have been the best given that situation. Do you foresee a stalling and adversely impacting India's LCA program, or do you see smooth sailing or touching the sky with glory in times to come on that, sir?
No, as the Air Marshal explained, and there's been a lot of delay in terms of replenishing our squadrons and our Air Force with the fighter aircraft. And I think we need to really do something about it. I think the government is serious, it's doing something. And I think as far as the US is concerned, there have been delays. We are aware of those delays. I'm glad that at least as far as Safran is concerned, things are working, will hopefully work as per schedule. But I think we really need to pay attention to our defense requirements. And I think this year's budget has, of course, allocated funds for purchases, but I think we need to make those purchases because, our defense acquisition process has been rather, in the past at least, I recall, it has been extremely convoluted and it takes a lot of time. So if we can cut the red tape, because this is a dire requirement, and I think we are hopeful that this issue will be resolved sooner than later. And, our neighborhood is only getting more complex. And certainly we need to be prepared for any eventualities.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure the government is working in that direction. And I think you need trustworthy partners, because if you can't trust a partner, especially for supply of defense equipment, then I think the whole point of having this strategic partnership is sort of comes up for debate. So I think as far as France is concerned, I think by and large they have been meeting their commitments, and I do hope President Macron's visit will further ensure that our already robust partnership will go from strength to strength, as the Prime Minister described in his press conference earlier today, from the depths of the ocean to the highest mountain, to Mount Everest, etc. So I do hope that, with the very close links that bind India and France are further strengthened by this visit, and not just in defense, as I said, but in other areas too. I think over 20 agreements and MOUs have been concluded today. And I think these are extremely significant, particularly signed during the times that we live in today, right now.
From artificial intelligence to upskilling in aviation to ecology to small nuclear reactors, modular nuclear reactors. Ambassador Jawed Ashraf, you wanted to come in last 30 seconds that I have on this part of the show.
Yeah, I wanted to say
yours,
that, this relationship is way beyond just defense. And one example of this is our convergence on both the public character and purpose, as well as open source nature of artificial intelligence. This is the building block of power, competitiveness, and leadership in the 21st century. And it is very important for India, France, India, and Europe to work together to prevent the emergence of a global duopoly in power between China and the United States, and to work for a world that is more inclusive and equal and not lead to increased concentration of power in the hands of either two countries or a few companies. And I think this is a very important development, as is also, by the way, as a startling figure is that over the past several years, the stock of FDI investment from France into India is the highest in Indo-Pacific, and it stands at 373%. So it's a very complete relationship. And sometimes what we are doing in the defense space often overshadows some of the other strengths and of the relationship. So I think these MOUs that you're seeing today are a reflection of the kind of wide-ranging nature of the relationship. As I said, we are both wedded to the idea of a multipolar world, anchored in rule of law and multilateralism, and based on a sense of strategic autonomy. This is the guiding principle for us going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And this is something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the French President Emmanuel Macron also emphasized on. Rules-based order. You cannot have either America or China dictate to the rest of the world and expect them to kowtow to a duopoly, as Ambassador Jawed Ashraf said. I want to thank all my guests.